Hello and welcome back to the 33rd edition of the Galway Film Festival. Thank you for joining us for today's screening of Chaotic 2020, really insightful doc by a young Palestinian director, Tala Zeitawi, and I'm delighted to be joined by her now. Hi, Tala.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for joining me. You're back home in Palestine after your year in Galway.
Yes, no, I'm in Palestine.
Cool. Well, if we just dive in and get started, tell us maybe what it was that, or how it is you came to be studying in Galway in the first place.
I wanted to do my master's abroad, not in Palestine. So I started researching for scholarships, and one of them was Ireland Palestine scholarship, and I applied to it, and I got lucky, and I studied a year in Galway at GMIT.
And what was that experience like?
It was truly amazing. I really liked Ireland, especially like the people are so nice. I love the nature. And one thing I miss the most, I think, is being 5 minutes away from the sea. Because here in Palestine, of course, I can't even access or I'm not allowed to visit the sea unless I have an Israeli permit. So yeah, I missed that the most, and it was a very nice experience,
Great. So,
regardless of COVID.
well, yeah. I guess the film is there to tell us how you feel about that. Um, but I mean, it might be interesting to know how it was you decided on social farming as a subject for your documentary, at least originally.
Yeah. So in the beginning, I didn't really know what to do about my graduation project, and my family always pushed me into um, focusing on something happy or happy topic. Because here in Palestine, I always focus on like neglected communities, marginalized communities, and people who don't have much attention on. So they told me to use the year in Ireland for a more of a happy topic, but I really didn't know what to do about. So I was traveling from Dublin to Galway, and it took about 4 hours probably in the bus because it had so many stops. And the bus driver's name is Roger. I was the only one in the bus, and it was at night. And then it started the conversation, and he told me like, "What are you doing here in Ireland? What are you studying?" and so on. And then I asked him the same questions, and he told me that he was a social farmer before being a bus driver. And I didn't know what social farming is. So as he started explaining what it is, I automatically thought of people with disabilities back in Palestine and how they are neglected and how they don't have access to anything and so on. So I became interested in that topic, and he gave me contact information for middle third form. And as soon as possible, I contacted them and I went and met them, and that's where it all began.
Great. And so was it always in your mind to, or at least from early on, to compare, accessibility in Ireland versus in Palestine, or did that kind of come later when, after COVID hit and you had to change everything?
Um, Honestly, as soon as I heard about what social farming Ireland is, I thought about comparing it, and I really wanted to apply that, um, like a project like social farming here in Palestine. So I thought of comparing both of them. Um, yeah, just to show how people with disabilities are treated here and then people with disabilities are treated in Ireland.
And in terms of like gaining access to, a community in that way, what were the differences between Ireland and Palestine in that way? I mean, it seems like the social farming community was very welcoming. And then you say you were used to filming marginalized communities back homes where people kind of used to you doing that in that regard, or was any one community harder than the other?
Yeah, definitely one community was harder than the other. Here in Palestine, like I faced so many challenges. A lot of people either don't want to be filmed or they're scared or where this would be screened at, or so I guess it wasn't very easy to film people here, especially ones who live in refugee camps. And yeah, so I went to too many families and a lot of people rejected, and we had a lot of problems. So then I focused on the ones who actually wanted to share their stories and to share with them why I wanted to do this.
Right. And so when COVID happened, I mean, you do talk about this in the documentary, but I'm just curious to discuss it with you now as well. Like, what made you decide to keep going? And I mean, did everyone um, in your same master's program continue with their projects? What made you decide, oh, I'm going to completely change the narrative of this documentary and keep pursuing it, even though, you know, everything was locked down around you?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I was very frustrated, and I told my supervisor that I don't know how to continue with this film. And of course, I had to finish my master's project within this year because my scholarship would finish in that year. So he suggested that I would include COVID in my film. And in the beginning, I was like, no, this is not how I want it to be. And I don't want to film things about COVID and so on. But then another professor was like, but focus on how you were as a student back in Palestine, how you shared your stories there. Because my university here in Palestine was raided by Israeli forces on a weekly basis. So then we also have like lots of restrictions here in Palestine. As Palestinians, we can't go to different places and so on. And then how in Ireland, I thought of a year of being independent and having the freedom and to go wherever I want. And then having no restrictions, of course. And then COVID came. So he told me that it would be interesting if you can compare how restrictions are always following you wherever you go. So I kind of thought of that sentence that he said, and it's really true. So I decided to include COVID and to compare how my life as a student in Palestine was, and then coming for a year in Ireland was sort of the same thing, but different locations. So, of course, you remember how in the beginning of COVID, we had the restrictions of only like 2 kilometers around our houses.
Yeah.
So that felt like I'm truly back in Palestine. Like, even I have an Israeli checkpoint like 5 minutes away from my home right now. So yeah, I sat down, I started thinking about Ireland and Palestine and compared both, and how my year or my perspective of that year changed.
Yeah, I think it's really
Yeah.
interesting for Irish audiences to see. And um, you've been back in Palestine. I mean, you were there for the most recent wave of attacks a few weeks back, weren't you?
Yes. Yes.
I'm
I
glad that you
was.
stayed
I
safe.
came back. Yeah, it was definitely hard because I also went out to film these protests that are happening. And of course, as a documentary filmmaker, I wanted to film and to have these footage with me as part of history and so on. But then every time I wanted to go and film, of course, my family calls me, go back home, don't go film, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but I really need to show this. And then I decided to use it for a different project. So I filmed the protests that are happening. And of course, I risked my own life being there because they also were throwing tear gas bombs, they were throwing live bullets, and the Palestinians were only throwing rocks. And I'm talking about this checkpoint that's 5 minutes away from my house. So yeah, it was a very tough few months. And I used to go like every day to film these events that are happening.
Well, I mean, I just think you're incredibly brave for doing that. I can't wait
Thank
to
you.
see what comes of all the footage you caught. I mean, tell us a bit more about that. How I we've no basis for comparison here, I feel, at least, in modern times. But I mean, to, like you said, you were putting your life in danger. Is there, I mean, from what age even did you start doing this, like filming protests and attacks? And was there a way that you kind of came into it? Is there a sort of guerrilla filmmaking community around you, or is it just you? Tell us a bit more about it.
Um, as as I was a child, I was always interested in photography and filming, but I never really had the the thought of being a documentary filmmaker since the beginning. So this started when I was during like when I was in university during my bachelor's degree, and the first year it was terrifying to see like once a week you have an Israeli military forces coming into your university while you're just sitting inside the classroom having your class, and then they start throwing tear gas bombs and live bullets and rubber bullets and so on. And it's also depended on the professor that was teaching us. So it depended on the professor. Some professors were like, oh, we have to continue our class, let's just stay in class, and they continued giving their class. And others were like, oh, go to emergency exit and leave and go home. But anyways, there was no emergency exit. It was just like another gate for the university, and they always had also Israeli military forces there. So that year I decided that I really wanted to film these protests. But then if they catch you filming these things, of course, you would have no future. You would probably end up in jail. You never know what would happen to you. So, so after like the first year, I was always fearful about this. And then the second, third, and fourth year, I honestly felt like we became numb to the situation. It just happened like we felt like it's a part of our daily life. Um, so it wasn't surprising every time they came into the university, we're like, oh, again, okay, let's just go home or whatever. Um, so yeah, I think like my second year, I began to film these protests and began to be interested more in being a documentary filmmaker and to focus on these marginalized communities, people who are being kicked out of their homes, especially Bedouin communities. So yeah, I think it happened during my bachelor's degree that I
And even
decided
just
to do.
for some practicals for people who are wondering about, I mean, you capture some amazing footage from Palestine in your film. Um, are you catching this on a phone? Does the university give you equipment, or how did you capture some of that amazing footage?
Well, when I was in during my BA years, we used to have cameras from the university, but then after I graduated, my family bought me a camera, and since then I've been using it. So yeah, I've been using my own equipment to film these protests.
Nice. And you do all your own editing as well, right? I mean, you think you edited Chaotic 2020 completely. I remember you telling me that wasn't the most enjoyable couple of months for you.
Yeah, I like to film more than to edit, but yeah, this film, like I felt like I did literally everything. Like I recorded my own voice, I wrote the script, I color corrected the film, I edited the film. Um, so I decided how to do it exactly, like which parts to choose from. And I think it took me about 4.5 months to edit this film.
Oh,
And of course, like going from Galway all the way to GMIT, either walking or by bus or cycling. And every time I used to go, like during the summer, I was the only one there in the university because of COVID. Only master students were allowed to go there. And I was the only one in the university going there every day. And of course, to cycle in Galway, I think it was a terrible idea for me because the wind and everything was just like
sideways
pushing me
rain.
backward. Yeah, pushing me backwards. And yeah, I think after Galway, I didn't ride a bike after that. I was like, no, thank you, not anymore. Yeah.
Well, the weather is decidedly different right now, but it's probably not much consolation. I wanted to ask you again, going back to the most recent wave of Israeli attacks in Palestine. Um, there was a sort of sense, I think, particularly in Western media, that like there was something different about the response this time. People felt like that there was stronger condemnation, at least in mainstream media, certainly online. Was that your feeling on it? Did you think something was different, or do you just feel like a lot of the same rhetoric is being spoken and nothing has changed?
And the recent events, you mean? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I actually felt like the world has changed a bit, or it changed their perspective on Palestinians a bit. But then right now, it was just like only a small phase, and then right now there's nothing really happening. Like, yeah, in the beginning I felt like things are changing, but now it's back to level one. Yeah, I think that's it.
That must be very disheartening when it seems like, I guess, people are finally listening, or the people that need to are finally listening, and then I guess they move on to the next thing on social media or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, it was just like a month, and then life is back, I guess. I don't know.
I'm so sorry, that's awful.
Yeah.
What's though? I'm looking to the future. What's next for you? You're finishing a second master's program.
Yes. Yeah, I had another scholarship in Berlin, in Germany, and it's in documentary and factual filmmaking. In September, I would be finishing my graduation project, and I would be finishing my master's project. After that, I would definitely like to have a job that's related to documentary filmmaking, but I feel like it's quite hard to find something like that in Palestine. I could do it as a freelancer, but then it wouldn't be a job that would earn me money, or, because I have to apply for fundings and so on. But there aren't really companies or organizations that focus on, let's say, marginalized communities in Palestine, like towards filmmaking, I mean. So yeah, I've been applying recently for jobs here in Palestine and abroad. So we'll see how that happens.
Well, fingers crossed. I hope that we can see you in person at an in-person festival. In real life again would be great. I hope those job applications work out for you. Where can for people who want to support you? You have a website. People can find your work online. I mean, not this film right now, obviously, but other work that you've done.
Yeah, I have a recent website, but it's mostly of photography projects. And I have Shutterstock, I have Instagram, and yeah, the website that has photography projects. I can email them to you.
Great. Yeah. So, or if people search for Tala Zeitawi,
Yeah.
they'll hopefully find you online. Fantastic. Well, like I said, I wish you luck with this project and your future projects, and I hope we'll see you at a future Galway Film Fly again. Thanks so much for talking to us, and stay safe and solidarity with you.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be a part of the Film Festival of Galway, and hopefully I'll come back to Galway one day.
I hope so. Thanks, Tala.
Thank you. Thank you.